from a company well known for its co-op games. We thought it would be appropriate to do sort of a co-op session. Please welcome Philip Martin from Hazelight. Okay, so this is an AMA, right? I have some backup questions available, and I'll ask Philip a couple of things just to get the ball rolling. But the idea is that you, the audience, should ask the questions. So don't be shy. Philip, let's warm up. Maybe tell us how you ended up in cinematics, and specifically, how did you get into working with Hazelight?
It's a very long story. I don't think we have time. But to make a long story short, I was an actor in Sweden for 15 years or so. I was working in TV shows, making movies, and I got to know this crazy person named Joseph through his brother, who also happens to be an actor. We hung out. I helped him move. And he invited me to come and do some motion capture for a game called A Way Out. And we were only supposed to do a couple of NPCs. And then we did, I don't know, 700, something like that. And we got along, and we had a good time together. So he invited me to come and join full time and be a game tester. So my road into the game development sphere was through QA, which I recommend everyone doing, because you get exposed to every single aspect of the game. And from there, the scenes that we had shot together, it was pretty natural that someone needed to edit them. So that's kind of, it was a natural progression into that space.
How early are you involved in the creative process, and do you ever give, because your work is mostly in cinematics, right? So do you ever give feedback that shapes the story as well?
Oh yeah.
Given how important storytelling is for the Hazelight games.
Yeah. It's it's evolved over the years. In A Way Out, a lot of rewriting happened in the space when we were shooting it. Joseph was writing it at the time, and sometimes the English was Swinglish. It was a mix between Swedish and English. So that's kind of where it started, and now it's evolved to the point where we have systems established where our writer Sebastian and Joseph, they kind of they sit in their ivory tower for a little bit, and then they open up, and we have a group. Like every single person at Hazelight is a stakeholder in the narrative, in the cinematics, which is why we can produce that many minutes that fast. So it's not a one-man show type situation. So everyone's invited from every single department, and we break down the scripts and we talk about what we think is shootable, what we think we should potentially change. And it's everything from, oh, this line sounds a bit weird, I don't believe that this character would say this way, to what if we completely change the scene and turn it upside down, kind of. And then they go back and then they rewrite, and then whatever comes out of that is what we do a tech rehearsal with. I do a pre-visualization stage, so I take the scripts and I block it out in the scene, in the space that it's supposed to be taking place in, and then I get approval from Joseph before we go into tech rehearsal, where everyone involved with the motion capture process basically sits down and we show them what we're looking to make. Feedback happens. We change what we need to change, and then we go to shoot it. And then feedback happens again when the cast comes on the stage and this line, I don't know, what if we do it this other way? So it's very it's very plastic. We try to make sure that everyone is heard. It's important for Hazelight to have a collaborative process. stronger together and all that stuff.
You mentioned Joseph a couple of times in your response. Is he like super involved
Oh yeah,
with the creative process?
everything goes through Joseph. Okay. He is. I can't say what I call him here. He is the Don at Hazelight. He's very much involved. He's in the office every day. I don't know. I've heard that people don't think that he comes to work. He's very much at work. He works really hard, and I think the reason why Hazelight has found success is in large part because Joseph is present, and he has, as a vision owner, is involved with every single step. Kind of what Alice was talking about narrative and gameplay being married into this DNA strain. That kind of all happens in Joseph's head. We don't have a narrative designer. I guess he's the narrative designer. Yeah.
So I gotta ask, as a game development team, and being part of that team, how did it feel, winning Game of the Year for It Takes Two years back?
I don't know. It's still unreal. It's not something we think about.
It's kind of like the ultimate recognition of that achievement, no?
Yeah. I mean, not to kind of like throw shade at it. I think it's amazing and unreal, and it still feels like it's not reality. But I would disagree with the ultimate recognition, because I think the response we get from our player base is the ultimate recognition.
I meant critical recognition.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. No, it's crazy.
Right. Let's see if people are brave enough to start. Okay, I'll start here.
Hi. So first I want to mention that It Takes Two is my favorite game. I played it with my brother. I think it connected us in a way that we never had the chance to. So it really means a lot, this game, to me. And I was curious, after It Takes Two and the success that it had, going to split fiction, did you, all the guys at Hazelight, did you feel like you had to follow the same formula, or you felt some pressure to deliver, like the next best game?
Well, there's always expectations after a game like that. But what I love about working at Hazelight is that that's never part of the conversation. We just try to make something that we want to play ourselves. And that's kind of where we start from. And, working up to day 0 patch for Split Fiction, I think there was 2 or 3 weeks or so, and then we started working on Split Fiction. So when everything happened around It Takes Two, we had already moved on. So it was too late to like learn too many things externally from it, because we were already working on the next project.
Cool. We have one here.
And it's the same with Split Fiction, by the way. We had no idea how that would be received. We did some external testing and stuff, of course, but then, next thing.
So you guys have a very specific type of game that pretty much nobody else is doing. How does that manifest for your part of development? What is the weirdest thing that the type of game that you guys do makes you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think our process and the way the company and studio is set up is unique as well. Like, I'm not sure. I don't know this for a fact, but we're 83 people at the time, I think. 87 maybe. And the way we work, I don't know if it's scalable. I don't think we can go in triple digits. Like, it's set up in a way where, like, we have a pretty flat structure, and then the Dawn, the spider in the web, the puppet master, he can become the bottleneck if we grow too big, right? So it's kind of, what's the weirdest thing? I don't know, a movement meeting, and Joseph is on the meeting board table showing what he wants us to do, and it's like karate chops in the air. And if you've seen any interviews with him, there's only one version of him. Like that's a Wednesday. And I say that with all the love because he's one of my closest friends today, and it's a playground.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So I had a question, but I don't want to forget. So you said something along the lines that, lastly, a great story is a great story and the medium is secondary. And I was wondering if you could expand more on that, because I think that a great story cannot be a great story without a great medium or an appropriate medium.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Was Lord of the Lord of the Ring books?
Okay, I'm
No?
gonna say something.
Harry Potter.
I'm gonna say
You don't like those books?
never read them, never seen the movies.
I would argue that they're fairly well-written books.
Okay.
Okay, and then I
Makes
would
sense.
also argue that when they filmed them, they did a pretty good job with it too. So that's kind of like my position on, hey, if the story is solid, we should not underestimate how difficult it is to write a good story. Like that, it's very difficult. And I think what's common specifically in the game industry it's that we underestimate how much work it takes, how much skill you need, and it's deep. So when you manage to create something that is on its own, just solid, the medium in which you display it is secondary. It becomes secondary because it can work as a radio theater or a game or a movie or, I don't know, freestyle rap. The medium in which you present the work is secondary to the work. Does that make
Okay,
sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. But then I have a follow-up question to that.
Hit me.
Yeah. It feels like a story is easier to tell in a single-player game, let's say, or a very story-driven game, right? But you make co-op games, which I feel kind of, from my experience, kind of has a difficulty in. Like you have to find certain, I don't know, methods of telling the story through using the medium of co-op games. So did you face any difficulties when you decided to make co-op games with how you tell the story or something along those lines? If I explain correctly.
No, I think I understand, and you feel free to correct me if I'm misunderstanding. But again, I think we're applying fairly basic fundamental tools. We're still talking about arc, right? The emotional journey of the character. We're still talking about plot. Like we have those two together becomes story. And then you have narrative structure, which is fairly standardized in Western storytelling. You have a 3-act structure, a 4 or 5-act structure. 4 if you're talking about TV series like Breaking Bad and Life is Strange is structured the same way. So the tools are the same. It's just a matter of how they're kind of applied. So instead of having one character, we have 2, which means we have 2 arcs instead of just one. But it's basically we're doing the same thing. Oh, you have another question. I see you.
We had, we're trying to distribute them evenly among the audience.
Find me later. We're talking.
Okay, so we have one here.
A few of the scenes from the games, like I remember in It Takes Two, you're flying on a transparent fish at some point, seem kind of psychedelic. What triggers that creative process that led you to this?
Mushrooms. No. I'm not sure. I don't remember specifically where that specific idea came from. I wouldn't be too surprised if it was a designer that kind of threw something together that they thought was really cool. And then we found a way, or Joseph, together with the designers, we found a way to kind of incorporate that into, it was in the tree house, or the tree outside in the garden. A lot of how we come up with these things, or the design team, which they're the rock stars, by the way, at Hazelight, for sure. A lot of prototyping happens. a lot of iteration happens very, very early in production. And Joseph is kind of a filter where he would walk in and have regular syncs with the designers and push them in a direction where he sees that this idea could work if we do it this way, and then we fuck it up. Kind of. Yeah.
Cool. We had one here.
First of all, thank you for the games I played. I didn't play PlayStation yet, but it was like a big part of discovering so many mechanics that I liked through It Takes Two, and I found them really creative. And this is where a question would rise, would be like, what was first? I mean, not the chicken or the egg, but what was first here? Like, was it the storytelling in which you decided to build the mechanics around, like, oh, we go through a playground, we go through under a children's bed, and then it will be fun if we have toys? Or was it like, oh, I have this cool idea for mechanic, and I want the story to be integrated within that mechanic? I was curious more, how did the ideas jump from storytelling to the mechanics you wanted to implement?
Very good question. I think, ideally, I have a designer sitting here next to me answering that question. I think the short answer is there are a couple of different ways that can come about. And I'm not involved with the conversations with Joseph and the designers specifically regarding these type of questions. So I would have to refer you to one of the designers, to be quite honest, because I don't want to get it wrong, you know?
Sure.
Yeah.
That would be fun. Thank you.
Let's one here, and then we'll go there.
I wanted to ask, it's more of a process question related to, obviously it's a co-op game, so you need two players to be able to play it. How do you guys actually handle internal playtesting? Because normally when you have a single player game, you just go in and start playing, but now you have to bother someone and like, hey, can you help me out? Do you have like regular sessions, or is it something that happens very ad hoc?
They're fairly unregular, but I mean, we have dev tools where we can switch characters really quickly, and we can set them up, and we can lock input and say, for split fiction, just use that as an example. If I needed to figure out whether or not we're triggering a cutscene in the correct way, I could set up Zoe so she's running forward, and then I'll switch to Mio, and then I can do what I need to do and trigger the cutscene that way. But I think, you know, personally, what I've found is those ad hoc type of, hey, can you help me with this thing, really promotes co-creation with your colleagues. Even if there's someone from the art team, you just grab them real quick. Hey, do you have a minute? Let's do this thing, because I have to check and see if this transition works. Most of the time, an idea comes up from that. So it's less of a problem than you might think. It's actually very productive. Yeah.
I think we had one or two here. Him first.
Thank you. So, being a game with this layer of psychology and morality, have you worked with specialists, experts, psychologists, or you just did it on your own, from your own perspectives, or from Joseph's mind?
Yeah, it's a lot of it is from Joseph's mind. You know, there has been instances where we have asked people to come in that are experts in certain fields, and just to check and see if hey, are we heading in the right direction? Is this like, are we cool with this? You know what I mean? That has happened, but I guess we're just trying to focus on the human experience behind it. Like, here's a person that's hurting, sadness, and we've all felt these feelings, and they're universal feelings. But I don't think that we're making any recommendations about how to handle these feelings. It's more like, this character ended up handling it this way. I'm not saying you should. You don't turn your parents into dolls, please. You know, yeah.
Hi. from A Way Out to It Takes Two, and finally now Split Fiction, all your games helped me and my little brother grow closer together, so I thank you for that. My question would be, in a market where single-player games are usually the ones that tell the stories best for people, how did you come up with this mentality that stories, great stories, are better experience shared rather than alone?
Oh, what a question. Well, first of all, it makes me very happy to hear that you guys have been enjoying it and getting closer. We still get fan mail and stuff, and it warms my heart every time it happens. So the question was, how did we... Well, can you repeat it for me real quick?
Yes, how did you come up with this shift that great stories could also be shared, not rather than experienced as a lone wolf, as it usually is now in the current market?
I think you know, a lot of this is coming from Joseph's weird, you know, special brain. And I don't want to answer for him, but I do believe he has answered a similar question before in some form of interview, where it's like, going to the movies when we were kids was a shared experience, even if it was a passive medium that you would just enjoy. But sharing that, you know, I don't know how many of you have played like the old GoldenEye on N64. Now that was a shared experience, right? Even I remember we would tape like blankets on the TV so you couldn't sneak peek on the other side of the screen and stuff. That was part of the experience. You know, being able to like punch the controller out of the hands of your brother or your friend. It's the meta game, the meta interaction is part of the experience. So I think that's where it came from. I hope I answered your question.
Hey, so first of all, I want to say thank you because your games are the only games that I managed to play with my wife. So that's the first thing. As far as I remember, your game is built in Unreal, and I'm also building a game in Unreal, and I'm struggling with the cinematics and creating gameplay cinematics, I would say. I was wondering if you can share more about the tools you have internally, you are using internally at the studio.
Oh, yeah? Yeah, you're right. We've been sitting and developing in Unreal since the way out, basically. I have the luxury of having an engineer. His name is Jonas, and he's a magician. I don't know how he does what he does. I think he sacrifices goats at midnight sometimes. I can go ask him for a feature in Sequencer, and then the next day it's there, but it's better than I requested. So a lot of it is to his credit, to be quite honest. We run heavily modified Unreal to the point where it's almost, we would almost call it Haze Engine. There are some stuff, of course, that we've saved, like the rendering and how that works, but our sequencer has been now so personalized that if I sit down with vanilla Unreal, I'll be like, where's the button that does the thing? You know? But you have to remember, like, the tool dev has been over 9 years now, 10 years. So a lot of things have changed. But I understand your struggle, and you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll try to help you if you have a specific question. Yeah?
Hey, thank you for putting up with us so far.
No, I'm enjoying this.
I have one, like most of us don't really have big budget, big studios or whatever we work with indie stuff. What's one piece of advice that you would give like indie developers to implement cool, unconventional stories within any kind of genre, basically, but it's still storytelling. But for like indie.
Yeah, I mean, our first game was indie, I would say. I think A Way Out was $5 million, if I'm not misremembering. Fine, it's on the higher end of indie, sure, but it's still indie, in my opinion. And I still struggle with the idea of that we're doing AAA games. I don't know. Like we're 83 people, and AAA for me is like you're 250 people, and you have outsourcing, and you're swimming in money. I don't know. I think my personal opinion is learn to write. Actually, learning how to write is super important when it comes to like, how do I realize a vision? How do I realize an experience? And learning how to write is useful across all kind of like creative endeavors or processes that comes after that as well. I know Robert McKee was mentioned by Alice in the talk. Worth a read for sure. I myself, I'm leaning more closely with The Anatomy of Story. I would really recommend reading that book. It's super dense, and you may read it once, and then you go, "Oh, I got it now," and then you come back to it a few months later, and you're like, "What?" So. I think learning how to write will allow you to just make more targeted decisions, and the result of that process would then be something that might not have been done before. Yeah.
Hello, and thank you for the games. I want to ask you, how did you come up with the elephant scene, and how did you come up with the idea, and was everybody on board from the start? Did you have any, like, was the team divided about it?
This question always comes up. No comment. How did we come up with the idea? The most honest answer I can give, I think, is a lot of conversation, and but Joseph is the originator of that idea. Like, it came from him, and at some point, I think early production, it was a little bit worse, and we had to kind of like chill. We have to like back it off a little bit, but it's still, it got a reaction. Yeah.
So we're actually out of time, but I'd be happy to continue for another 5 minutes or so if you're good, because it seems like we have some engagement going on here.
There are a number of studio head type people in the industry that we know are like kind of eccentric and can be just interesting but challenging to work with. And I'm just really curious from the perspective of working with somebody who is very much a visionary, especially as a flat kind of organization, how do you handle like scope creep or things changing, or somebody changing their mind, or wanting to push things too far, things like that? How do you navigate that? And have you ever put any kind of process in place for wrangling something like that? Because I know that a lot of indies can also deal with the same kind of getting lost in the weeds and wanting to explore things. So any words of wisdom?
Wow, how do we handle with gritted teeth and clenched fists? I think everyone would be very surprised to know how much changes from the inception of the game until the actual finished product, and how late those changes come in. For Split Fiction, it was like a big cut came in with finished. The level was finished; it was polished. But we decided to cut, or Joseph did, a segment of it. And I think this is a week before submission. So it was close. It was very close. And for It Takes Two, there's a whole level that was cut. You can see it on YouTube because we couldn't unplug it we couldn't remove it from the actual game files. Because we would risk just breaking things, and then we'd have an avalanche of bugs to fix, and we didn't have time. So we just unplugged it. But it's there. You can access it through the dev menu, and it's Rose's nightmare, and you're in a chocolate box, and a lot of changes happens. But one thing that Joseph is really, really, really good at, and I think this is one of his strengths, is he can filter. This change needs to happen because X, and this change is whatever. Nobody's going to recognize this. It's fine. Just go move on to the next thing. His way to kind of like prioritize changes, brilliant. Which is why I think he's so successful in his endeavors.
I have a question here.
First of all, hi. I've only managed to play like It Takes Two, and I'm really curious about the thought process behind what ideas make it into the game and what actually happens to the ones that don't quite make the cut of implementing, like the example that you have given, that there is a cut level that was just unplugged but is still there. I'm talking about the ideas that don't quite make it. Do you return to them for any other games, or they're just gone?
That's a really good question for Joseph to answer. As an excellent question for Joseph to answer. I'd say generally no. Like, we do so much bespoke things, and there's no shortage of creativity at Hazelight. Joseph has a tendency to kind of like rile up people and be like, "What's a fucked up thing? Go make a fucked up thing and show me." That's kind of, how that process looks from my perspective. I'm not a designer, so I can't speak specifically for how that process looks. But that's kind of what I see and what I hear. Yeah.
We'll take like two more. See one over there.
Hello, and thank you for being here today. I was wondering in Split Fiction, for example, if you worked in parallel on multiple chapters at the same time, or if you had laser focus on each individual story, because they're so unique and have their own gameplay elements that it can be done in parallel. But then again, you said you had a limited amount of developers. Thank you.
Right. Oh, yeah. Good question. So Joseph really likes to work chronologically, when possible, which is most of the time, because we'll just make it possible, And what we did for Split Fiction, and I think this is also true for It Takes Two, is that we would have a couple of levels that we would focus on, during a sprint, if you will. And then we would bring in, for cutscenes, for example, and the narrative parts of it, we would bring in our talent from the UK, fly them in, and we would do a week of shooting, which would normally result in like 15 to 20 pages. And on average, a page pretty much is equivalent of 1 minute of runtime, roughly, plus minus a few seconds, right? And then we would make a push on that level. So we have engineers and designers, animators, the audio team, pretty much the whole studio is like focusing on a group of levels, maybe 2, if they're big. And then we'll push that until the next gate, basically. And then we'll move on and come back at some point. We move very much, we don't do vertical chunks that much. We do passes. So when working horizontally, it's easier to block out white box or gray box the whole level, then take a step back and say, okay, we think that this might need a little bit more work, and we see that this is gonna work as is. We can just polish this part up. So yeah, we do it in pushes.
Okay, I'll let you.
Hey, so if you could go back in time and change everything in the creative process of the development production stage, what that would be?
For which game? For A Way Out, It Takes Two, or Split Fiction?
For any game.
For any game?
Yeah.
Oh, I would change. See, like, I think you learn, I very much learn by doing. I hope that I'm a better storyteller today than I was when we started making A Way Out. So if I was tasked with remaking A Way Out, I don't think I would have made the same creative choices. To be quite honest with you, painfully honest with you right now, there's a few moments, specifically around my work, that's a little bit art by accident. I wasn't creating with intention back then. And I got lucky a couple of times. And Joseph was very good at, like, intervening when I was like, over here. He's like, no, bring it back. We got to do grounded. So now when I very much preach create with intention, I would make different choices. Yeah. Hopefully better ones.
All right. And I'll allow myself to ask the final question. What's your favorite, if you had to pick one moment that you helped create or created entirely in the game, what would be your favorite? Any game, any of the games.
Okay, yeah, I have a video of this on my phone, and if you ask really nicely, I might show you. There's a scene in A Way Out where Joseph is supposed to say, "All right, I'm gonna write her a letter." That's the line. He can't say it. What comes out of his mouth is and we're outside of the mocap studio and we're rehearsing the scene and everyone is like nailing their lines. And then we get to Joseph's line because he's mocapping for Leo at the time. And we're all like anticipating, oh, what's going to happen now? And he goes, fuck! So we pause the whole recording session and we go outside and we're just, okay, let's run through it. It'll stick eventually. You'll get there. Yeah, he never got there. So it's still a joke where like, you're going to I think that's one of my favorite moments.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you.